Hi everyone. Delhi, India. The sun was sinking behind the golden domes of Akshardham Mandir, one of the grandest temples in the land. The courtyard shimmered with saffron robes as thousands of devotees gathered, carrying marigolds, incense, and copper bowls of sacred Ganges water. The temple bells rang endlessly, ting, 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 blending with the low hum of ancient chants that rolled through the evening air. At the center of it all stood Pandit Ravi Shankar, the most revered Hindu priest in northern India. His white robes fluttered in the warm breeze, his silver hair gleamed under the dying sun, and his calm gaze carried the weight of decades of devotion. To millions, he was known as the voice of Vishnu, a teacher, philosopher, and the face of divine wisdom on television screens across the nation. That evening marked the beginning of the Aradhana Mahotsav, a grand annual ritual of worship to Lord Vishnu. Before him, rows of idols stood tall upon marble altars, their jeweled eyes glinting in the firelight. Flames danced in brass urns. The scent of sandalwood and camphor filled the air like a living spirit. Ravi raised his hands. The crowd followed. Their chant thundered across the temple grounds. Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Narayana. The air vibrated with faith. The sound was alive, vast, rhythmic, unstoppable. But suddenly, something shifted. Ravi froze. His lips stopped moving. In the middle of that roaring devotion, he heard a voice, soft, intimate, unlike anything he had ever known. Ravi, why do you worship the creation and not the Creator? He stiffened. His heart skipped. He looked around. No one had spoken. The voice had come from within. I am not in the stone. I am not in the fire. I am not in the river. I am closer to you than your own heartbeat. The words pierced him like light through fog. His hands trembled, his eyes fixed on the statue of Vishnu. But instead of divine majesty, he saw only stillness, silence, stone. For the first time in his life, the chants around him felt hollow. The smoke that once brought him peace now made his chest tighten. The idols that had always comforted him now seemed lifeless, carved echoes of something they could never truly represent. He looked at the thousands before him, faces full of devotion, arms lifted to the sky, eyes closed in blind trust, and a quiet thought formed in his mind. Who are you, the one calling me from within? Just then, the flame on the altar flickered. For a moment, it died, then blazed back to life brighter than before. A sudden gust of wind swept through the temple, twisting the incense smoke into a spiraling vortex that rose toward the ceiling. Ravi pressed his trembling hand to his chest. Something inside him had awakened something he could not name. 3 days had passed from that night. The incense still burned each morning in the temple. The chant still echoed through the marble halls. But Pandit Ravi Shankar felt none of it. The rhythm that once guided his life now felt empty. Every mantra, every ritual, every bow before the altar felt like a hollow dance in front of a silent god. He wandered through the courtyard alone after prayer. The golden bells chimed softly in the wind, but in his heart there was only stillness, and the echo of that mysterious voice. I am closer to you than your own heartbeat. That sentence haunted him like a melody he could not forget. That afternoon, as the sun began to fade, a temple guard approached him.
Pandit Ji, the man said, bowing respectfully. A visitor wishes to see you. He says he brings you a message. Ravi frowned. A message? From whom? He said, from God. The words made Ravi's pulse quicken. He nodded. Send him in. Moments later, a young man stepped into the courtyard. Simple clothes, calm eyes, a small smile of quiet confidence. He held a thin, wrapped parcel in his hands. "Namaste, Pandit Ji," the young man said gently. "My name is Amir Khan. I came from Lucknow. I don't wish to argue or convert. I only wish to deliver this to you." He placed the parcel on the stone table before him. Inside was a small green-covered book, the Quran, and a folded letter. Ravi stared at it for a long moment before slowly opening the letter. The paper was plain, the handwriting neat and humble. "To the seeker of truth, peace be upon you. I write not to challenge you, but to share what I found when I too searched for God in stones, in stars, and in saints, and found him nowhere but within the words of his own revelation. And we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to all the worlds." The Quran 21:107. "If your heart is restless, perhaps it is not lost, perhaps it is being called." Ravi's hands trembled. He read the verse again, then again. Something in those words pierced deeper than any mantra he had ever chanted. Mercy. The word echoed in his mind like a bell. Not power, not punishment, not fear, but mercy. That night, Ravi sat alone in his chamber. The Quran lay open on his desk, the candlelight flickering across its pages. He could not stop reading. Every verse felt alive, not as poetry, but as truth. He whispered to himself, "How can words so simple carry such weight?" He turned another page. "Everything in the heavens and the earth belongs to Allah." He closed his eyes. The words sank into his soul like water into dry earth. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was reciting something. He felt like something was speaking to him. Outside, the temple bells rang midnight. But Ravi did not rise for his usual prayers. He sat still, tears on his cheeks, whispering into the dark. "If you are the one who spoke to me that night, show me the truth, and I will follow it, even if it destroys everything I have built." The candle burned low. The night grew silent. And deep inside him, something answered, not in words, but in peace. Varanasi, the holy city on the banks of the Ganges. Dawn broke over the water like liquid gold. The sound of temple bells, conch shells, and chants filled the morning air as thousands gathered for the annual festival of light and purity. Incense curled toward the sky. Garlands of flowers floated on the river. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, but for Pandit Ravi Shankar, it was the day his entire world would change. He stood behind the main altar, dressed in the white robes of the high priest. The crowd stretched as far as the eye could see. Men, women, children, and monks from distant cities. Drums thundered, voices rose in praise of the gods. But inside, Ravi felt only silence. Every sound around him felt distant, hollow, meaningless. The verses of the Quran he had read night after night echoed in his soul.
Say, He is Allah, the One. Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, and there is nothing comparable to Him. He closed his eyes. The words vibrated inside his heart like a storm about to break. Suddenly, a thought pierced through his fear. If I stay silent now, I betray the truth that saved me. He stepped toward the microphone at the center of the altar. The chanting began to fade as people noticed the change in his face. No longer the calm, smiling guru they knew, but a man trembling with conviction. Ravi raised his hand. The crowd fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. His voice, though shaking, carried through the loudspeakers. My brothers and sisters, today I cannot continue this ritual. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Confusion. Shock. All my life, I searched for the Creator in statues of stone, in rivers, in fire, in temples built by men. But the voice I heard, the truth I found showed me that the Creator is beyond all forms. He paused, his chest heaving. He is one. He has no image, no son, no equal. The crowd gasped. Several priests exchanged panicked glances. And then Ravi said the words that would echo across the nation. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then chaos erupted. Some cried, some screamed in disbelief. Others fell to their knees, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. Ravi turned toward the massive statue of Vishnu, standing beside the altar. The same statue before which he had prayed since his youth. He walked toward it slowly, tears streaming down his face. The priest tried to stop him, but he raised his hand. No more! He wrapped his arms around the statue, heavy, cold, lifeless, and whispered softly, You were never God, and yet I loved you as if you were. With a surge of strength he didn't know he had, he pushed the statue from its pedestal. It tumbled forward, crashing into the Ganges with a thunderous splash. The crowd gasped. The sacred river rippled, swallowing the idol whole. Ravi raised his hands to the sky, his voice breaking with emotion. Let what is false be washed away, and let truth remain. The sky darkened. A gust of wind swept through the ghats, scattering the petals and candles that floated on the water. It was as if the heavens themselves bore witness to his declaration. Temple guards rushed forward. Microphones were cut, but it was too late. The moment had already been captured. Dozens of phones streamed it live. Within hours, the video would spread across India, then across the world. And there, standing alone at the edge of the sacred river, Ravi Shankar whispered the words again, this time in peace. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulallah. The crowd trembled. Some cursed him, some wept.
But among them, a few bowed their heads in silence, moved by something they couldn't explain. Because truth, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, it flooded every phone, every screen, every whispered conversation in tea stalls and train stations across India. Pandit Ravi Shankar has left Hinduism. He declared faith in Islam. He threw the idol into the Ganges. The nation trembled. Some called it blasphemy. Others called it bravery. But no one could ignore it. In Delhi, the news channels replayed the moment again and again. His trembling voice, the crashing of the idol, the sound of water swallowing stone. Politicians argued on live TV. Priests condemned him as a traitor. Yet quietly, in millions of homes, people re-watched that clip in silence, feeling something stir inside them. A woman in Lucknow wept as she watched the video on her son's phone. A college student in Mumbai whispered, what made him give up everything? A scholar in Hyderabad simply smiled and said, truth has a way of finding those who seek it. Meanwhile, in a small hidden masjid on the outskirts of Delhi, Ravi sat on the floor beside a young imam, none other than Amir Khan, the man who once brought him the Quran. The imam smiled gently. Are you ready, brother? Ravi nodded, tears filling his eyes. He repeated the words once more, this time not before cameras or crowds, but before his Creator alone. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Imam placed a hand on his shoulder. From today, Your name shall be Rahman Shankar, Rahman the Merciful, the name of Allah who called you from within. Rahman smiled, his face glowing with peace. For years I spoke about gods I never knew. Today I spoke to the one who finally answered. Days passed, but the storm did not calm. Some temples locked their gates, fearing unrest. Some universities debated his name in philosophy classes. And in mosques across the nation, imams quoted his story as proof that truth cannot be silenced. People began to search, quietly, secretly. Bookshops sold out of Qur'ans in several cities. Online, the most searched phrase in India that week was, "Who is Allah?" Meanwhile, Rahman kept away from the noise. He refused interviews, avoided the spotlight, and chose to live in a small house near the banks of the Ganges, the same river that once carried his old beliefs away. Each morning, he walked to the river, watched the sunrise, and whispered, "This river once washed away stone. Now may it wash away my sins." Months later, something extraordinary began to happen. Letters started arriving at his door, thousands of them, some filled with threats, but many, many filled with gratitude. "I watched your video, Panditji. I began reading the Quran. I was lost like you. Now I found peace. Your courage gave me strength to search for the truth." Rahman would read them with tears in his eyes. He kept them in a wooden chest by his bed, not as trophies, but as reminders that faith, when spoken sincerely, can move hearts beyond borders. And so, while the world debated his choice, he prayed not for victory or fame, but for forgiveness, for peace, and for the hearts of those still searching. Because he knew now what he had not known all his life. Truth does not need temples. Truth does not need idols. Truth only needs the courage to be heard.
The Ganges flowed quietly under the soft light of dawn. Mist hovered above the water, blurring the line between earth and sky. On its banks sat a man in a simple white kurta, his beard silver, his eyes calm. Rahman Shankar, once known to the world as Pandit Ravi, now a man reborn in silence. Around him the world had changed, but within him peace had finally taken root. Years had passed since that day at the river, the day the idol fell and faith rose in its place. The storm that once surrounded his name had long faded. Now few came to visit, except for those who sought guidance. They found him sitting beneath a neem tree, his prayer beads in hand, whispering softly, "All praise is due to Allah, who brings light after darkness." To some, he was a hero, to others, a heretic. To himself, he was simply a man who had been blind and then taught to see. One evening, as the sun turned the river gold, a young man approached him. He was nervous, clutching a small notebook. "Sir," he began softly, "I came from Varanasi. My father was there the day you threw the idol into the Ganges." Rahman smiled faintly. "I remember that day every time I close my eyes." The boy hesitated. "He cursed you then, but later he watched your video again and again, until one night he cried. He started reading the Quran, and before he died he said, 'That man showed me what courage looks like.'" The boy's voice broke. "He told me to thank you." Rahman looked away, his eyes glistening. "No, my son," he said quietly. "Thank the one who opened our hearts. I was just a mirror. He was the light." As night fell, Rahman walked to the river. The same river that once had carried the statue of Vishnu into its depths
now reflected the stars like countless lanterns. He knelt by the water, cupped his hands and whispered, "This river never belonged to any god. It belonged to God all along." He thought of his past, the temples, the chants, the fame, the questions. All the things he once believed to be holy now seemed small, human, fragile. But what he had found in Islam, in the words of the Quran, in the peace of prayer, felt infinite. He smiled and murmured to himself, "I used to worship what was made by hands. Now I worship the one who made the hands themselves." The call to prayer echoed faintly from a distant village, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." Rahman rose, turned toward the Qibla, and prayed. As his forehead touched the earth, a soft breeze rippled across the river, carrying petals downstream, remnants of forgotten rituals and the scent of new beginnings. When he finished, he sat quietly, watching the first light of morning paint the sky. Birds soared above the water, free and weightless. He whispered one final thought, not to the world, not to his followers, but to the Creator who had found him. The truth was not in temples of stone. It was in the silence between my breaths, where you have always been.